So for validity, a medical research document published on US government website under the Public Health Emergency COVID-19 Initiative, April 2022. COVID-19 vaccines / immunoglobulin / methyl, I'll try and pronounce that one, is the title, because this is a case study of 5 people admitted to hospital with conditions and symptoms they state are associated or secondary to, but not caused by, the COVID vaccine. So these may or may not have been reported to the VAERS system. Immunoglobulin and the second term were medicines used to treat these symptoms. The range of symptoms were categorized into 4 identifiable disease conditions, specifically of the nervous system. This has got nothing to do with myocarditis or blood clots. Symptom 1 listed is encephalomyelitis, acronym ADEM, is inflammation of the brain and spinal cord. So expanded information, second part there. ADEM may be an autoimmune condition in which the body's immune system mistakenly identifies and attacks healthy cells and tissues. And as we know, the machinations of how these vaccines work, these mRNA, is they enter the cells, change the cell's ribosome, so they produce a spike protein that then enacts the immune system to attack that cell. And we know that these lipid nanoparticles that deliver the mRNA do cross into the brain through the brain-blood barrier. Some of the symptoms are vision problems, weakness, difficulty in coordination, fever, and even going into a coma. Number 2, neuromyelitis, optica spectrum disorder, acronym NMOSD. This condition affects the central nervous system, particularly the eye and the spinal cord, can cause blindness, paralysis in legs and arms. So there are treatments, but no known cures, and can last several years or even be lifelong. Number 3 is multiple sclerosis-like syndrome, disease that affects the central nervous system again, nerve fibers, and causes inflammation and lesions. This makes it difficult for the brain to send signals to the rest of the body. So it's very rare, 10,000 per 26 million people. That's new cases. So there's treatments, no cure, and can last several years or be lifelong. Number 4 is meningoencephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain. So urgent medical attention is usually recommended because it can be dangerous or life-threatening. At the bottom there it says can last several days or weeks, and I think that's based on it's ordinarily caused by an infection. But if it's caused by or related to, let's say caused by, if it's associated with, as they say, with the COVID vaccines, well, that's been known to stay in people up to 10 months or even longer. Looking at each of these 5 cases, the first one was an 85-year-old man, and he had taken the Moderna. His problems started 13 days after the first injection. His symptoms were rapid onset and change in mental state. He had problems with his eye movement, and right down at the bottom there they put down due to ADEM, which is a reminder is this condition, which is an autoimmune condition. Over the time that he was in hospital, they tried both of those treatments, the immunoglobulin and the other one. After 26 days in hospital, they had limited success, and he ended up dying. It's just careful to note that he was of an advanced age, but they do state, and this article would have come from records from the hospital, and it's on the US government website, they say that it was associated with his recent COVID-19 vaccination, but not caused by it. Moving on to case 2, 63-year-old woman who had the Pfizer. She had neurological symptoms 1 week after the first dose, and she had severe back pain, paraparesis, and urinary retention problems, which would be very noticeable, not just to her, and very embarrassing. And after all the tests, they came up with down the bottom there, a diagnosis of NMOSD. That was this one. That's paralysis in the arms and legs, that's your paraparesis, loss of sensation, that could obviously be the urinary problems, and painful spasms, well, that'd be the back. And she was given, and I'll just truncate it to the methyl treatment. As for the results, well, 6 months later, she still had persistent hypertension lesions in her spinal cord and brain, and even at 10 months, she still had signs. And they do associate it with the COVID-19 vaccination. We're up to case 3. She's a 54-year-old woman with, she took the Moderna. Now, we're getting through them, but there's a second part to this, which is the immunoglobulin purchases by the Australian government. What I'll do is I'll put down 2 links or time links so you can go to both parts, but just keep hanging in there if you're interested in that. Her problems started 3 days after the second dose. After that 3 days, she had 2 weeks of a progressive ascending numbness. So it's getting worse. She actually went to the emergency department, and they've clinically called this an MSOD. And she was treated with unspecified steroids, which I find a bit mysterious because this article is about the first 2 treatments, but they've included this one in here, this case, obviously only just covering the type of injection that she got and the symptoms. I'll just jump ahead. You can see she had improvements. Why not? Obviously, they didn't release in any documents that they could get from the hospital of which particular steroids they were. Keeping that one close and tight to the chest. It was stated she had a notable improvement in her sensory symptoms, but, an improvement could still mean she's totally stuffed. But, it is notable when it is an improvement. So that finding's interpretive. Now, they've stepped back 1 degree here, and they've said it's probably associated with a recent COVID-19 vaccinations. Don't ring your lawyers. The fourth case, second last one, is a 49-year-old man, and he had the Moderna. His symptoms appeared 4 days after the second dose. And we had 3 weeks of numbness, low-grade fever, and an unsteady gait. And down the bottom there, onset of multiple sclerosis-like syndrome. So they gave him a 5-day course of the methyl treatment. Now, like him, he had substantial clinical improvement. That's much better than notable. Oh, we can see it. It's not doing you any good, but we can note it. But he had substantial clinical improvement. So that's his presentation. But what was going on inside of his body, at 10th month follow-up, he remained clinical remission, but he still had persistent hypertense lesions. And as each case comes along, they're walking this back even more. So they're saying it was consistent with, it just looks the same, a secondary to his recent COVID vaccination. So we know that this one definitely didn't appear in the VAERS system. So there's one extra thing to highlight, just back up to the middle there. The past medical history was significant for COVID-19 infection, with a full recovery about 3 months before his current illness. Well, the current illness is obviously it's only consistent with the jab. All of a sudden, it's just appeared. Obviously, he wouldn't have gone and get jabbed. I've already recovered. I mean, I already know my body can handle this thing. So it was obviously to do with work, coercion that they went about doing. The case 5 of this article is a 27-year-old woman who had the Pfizer. And symptoms hit her 6 days later. And she had problems speaking and writing. It could either be from the muscular problems, the nerves in her hands, or that she couldn't organise the words in her mind, which is what it looks like from that first sentence, which, if you're 27, she's probably at work somewhere, and she's trying to do her job, but she's having trouble, she'd be getting a bit worried. And she was given the methyl treatment, maybe some steroids, keep it quiet about. Now, she achieved a full recovery a month after discharge. Now, it's a full recovery from being able to speak and write, but, we'll find out if she's made a full recovery when she tries to have kids. Now, bad luck, lawyers, this was potentially caused, okay? They didn't say potentially associated, but potentially takes it out either way. So that's the first part of this video pretty much done. When I found this article, I thought it was a really good way to just highlight symptoms. And by the way, I found this back in October last year, but I didn't put it up because everything I put up to do with COVID and any jabs was instantly taken down. Now, a lot more stuff has gone up, particularly since the release of the Pfizer, so hopefully I won't get singled out. This one gets taken down. That's why I didn't put it up earlier. But it highlights what's happening outside of the VAERS system. And people, especially what Rennick was saying, people are just being ignored by the government. Their plight might be ignored, but I guarantee you, well, 99% confident that every single one, because they want to know what this stuff's doing to our bodies. All of this stuff is being documented. Even though they're not publishing on New South Wales Health anymore, the vaccination status of anyone in hospital with it. You bet they're not publishing it, but they're cataloguing it because, as Hunt said, this was a big experiment. Now, they might not necessarily want us to know the results, but they'll be using them, no doubt. So then move on to these immunoglobulins. The people might have noticed I've got exhibit various numbers up there. They're not in chronological order for this video, but they're in chronological order for the documents that I'm producing, because I'm cataloguing all of this, and there's going to have a 3-pronged approach. One is going to be videos like this where I just present it out there, and a lot of people will get that. I'll then have links to, I'm going to do a Substack article, and the Substack article is going to be on a comprehensive document that I'm preparing for this new entity I've got going now. And so it's going to have a whole list of documents and reference material. And I'm going to be making Substack articles off that and then presenting the exhibits primarily, because they're more visual, when I make videos. So that's what that exhibit thing's about. Here's a brief description of what they are. So it appears they originate in the body. Healthy individuals' immune globulins are made by plasma cells when exposed to an antigen such as a virus or in a fight against infection. And for therapeutic purposes is made from healthy human blood. So obviously get donations and then they do whatever it is to the blood to make it therapeutic. And then as treatment, they give it intravenously to someone with a compromised immune system to boost their natural immune system. Now, tender.gov.au is a good place to come to find out what the government's up to. So I did a search, the keyword immunoglobulin, going back to 2015. So here's one of the results. I'll just run quickly through it. So you've got the ID at the top there, and you've got the amend. What that means is if you look at the contract period 2018 to 2022, what occurs is they update the contract if they need more. It's sort of flexible. So that's all that is. So the agency is a National Blood Authority, categories Comprehensive Health Services, contract value $300,000, and they give you the supplier name. So here's another contract that wasn't updated. It must have been, it's for a short contract period, and the contract value of $161,000. So that was obviously targeted for corporate objectives and policy development. It seemed to be in the two categories. This one's for Comprehensive Health Services. This is from 2015 to 2020, so this one's finished. Again, the agency's National Blood Authority, and you've got Grifols as a supplier. But look at the value. You've gone from hundreds of thousands to $355 million. Now, these for Comprehensive Health Services. Now, for the same contract period, they also engaged CSL Behring, and on top of the 300-something million, they added another $568 million. Now, again, for Comprehensive Health Services. Now, there wasn't this kind of money being spent prior to 2015. So this was a move towards these immunoglobulin products, incorporating them into the, well, I mean, this is the government spending this money. I'm not sure exactly what Covell Serum Laboratories are doing with all of these blood products. There wouldn't be that many people needing intravenous injections. But anyway, that's what they're doing in the lead up to, well, as it turned out, the right up to the 2020, just before the jab rollout. Here's where it gets really interesting. So that was on the 31st of December 2020. Those contract periods finished. The very next day, started up a new contract, 1st of January through to 2025. And it's for $806 million. And the category's changed. It's no longer Comprehensive Health Services. It's drugs and pharmaceutical products. So it's got published date of 19th of January, but that wasn't when it first came out. It's got last updated, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, 19th of January 2021. Now, I've highlighted there, it's at 11:30 a.m. Now, as Tim the Dental Man used to say, what did he say, hold your money or something like that? Keep watching. So 10 minutes later on the same day, at 11:40 a.m., they loaded up another $607 million for drugs and pharmaceutical products, this time for Grifols Australia. And 6 minutes later, another $131 million, this time to Octapharma, again for drugs and pharmaceutical products. What are these drugs and pharmaceutical products? And to finish off, this is the last one, another $316 million, and this is at 11:51. So within 21 minutes, they'd racked up $1.9 billion in what would seem to be more of a fringe medical treatment for ordinary. I mean, how many people's immune systems would be down that you would expect that you would perhaps need a treatment to bolster their immune systems? Around the same time, if this is 19th of January, it's exactly 1 month before, well, the program. And where would you get $1.9 billion? Because remember that it comes from people, it comes from blood plasma from people. You've got to get all this. I mean, where would you get? I don't recall a mass people donating blood for a specific cause for this. I can't remember this was even advertised. Get down, we need immunoglobulin products to save everybody. Come on, if you've had, and you need to have had COVID for it to be any good. Because unless, of course, it's come from people that are already, and then they give that into so many angles on this. Now, the National Blood Authority, just looking at economies of scale, I would think their budget would be at a certain level. And I would think $1.9 billion in 21 minutes would be quite a spike. So was this done under, they would have to have appropriated. They would have had to have got reports and said, this is why we need it, gone to Parliamentary Committee on Appropriations, and they all sign off on it. Or was it appropriated? Because this was done during the COVID emergency period from 18th of March 2008 2020 through to the 17th of April 2022. As we know, the 400 billion, which that was only 1.9 billion, 400 billion the RBA gave to the banks occurred within that period without appropriation. You couldn't appropriate that much in one go. Frydenberg signed off on it, but that's only one part of it. It needs to be appropriated because that's ultimately coming from the public funds from consolidated revenue. And no money comes from it unless it's appropriated while the Constitution's going. This may be part of that. All right, I better finish up here. The video wasn't going to be taken down for just doing that report. I might get taken down for talking like this. So, all right, that's it for this one. Again, I'm documenting all this. Substack articles are coming up, as well as comprehensive database of all this information. So I've just got so much I'm working on. All right, that's it for this one.